Dr. William Mercer.
10 foods to lower blood sugar without cutting carbs. Have you ever looked down at your dinner plate and wondered if you're being forced to choose between enjoying the foods you've loved your whole life and protecting your health? For many people over the age of 50, that question becomes more personal every year. Maybe your doctor mentioned that your blood sugar is a little higher than we'd like. Perhaps your A1C has slowly crept upward over the past few checkups. Or maybe you've already been told you have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. The advice often sounds painfully familiar. Stop eating bread. Give up rice. No more potatoes. Cut the carbs. It's no wonder so many people leave those appointments feeling discouraged before they've even started. I've met countless patients who truly believed that healthy eating meant saying goodbye forever to family dinners, favorite recipes, and even simple pleasures like a slice of whole grain toast with breakfast. But here's something many people never hear. What if lowering your blood sugar wasn't only about removing foods? What if adding the right foods could actually help your body respond to insulin more effectively? That may sound surprising, but modern research has shown something fascinating. Insulin resistance doesn't happen simply because carbohydrates exist. It develops because our cells gradually stop responding properly to insulin's signal. Imagine insulin as a key. Its job is to unlock the doors of your body's cells so glucose can leave your bloodstream and enter the cells where it's needed for energy. When you're insulin sensitive, the key fits smoothly into the lock. But over time, inflammation, excess body fat around the abdomen, poor sleep, inactivity, aging, and certain dietary patterns can make those locks stiff and difficult to open. The pancreas notices sugar staying in the bloodstream, so it sends out more insulin, then even more. Eventually, there's plenty of insulin circulating, but the cells simply aren't listening the way they once did. That's insulin resistance. And it's one of the biggest reasons blood sugar begins climbing with age. Here's the encouraging part. Researchers now understand that certain foods contain natural compounds that appear to improve how those cellular locks respond to insulin. Not magic foods, not miracle cures, but foods that support healthier insulin signaling, reduce inflammation, nourish the gut, improve muscle metabolism, and help your body manage carbohydrates more effectively. That means this isn't another conversation about fear. It's about understanding how your body works. Today, we're going to explore 10 foods that may help lower blood sugar without demanding that you eliminate carbohydrates completely. These are foods that fit into everyday meals. Foods many people already enjoy. Foods supported by growing scientific evidence. And perhaps most importantly, foods that can work alongside the guidance of your healthcare professional, not replace it. Because lasting health rarely comes from extreme diets. It comes from giving your body the tools it needs to function the way it was designed. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked foods in the entire grocery store: eggs. Now, eggs have had a complicated reputation over the years. For decades, many people avoided them out of concern for cholesterol. But when we look specifically at blood sugar and insulin resistance, eggs tell a much more interesting story. Picture a typical breakfast: a large bowl of sweetened cereal, orange juice, toast with jam. Within an hour, blood sugar rises quickly. The pancreas responds with a surge of insulin. Then, a few hours later, many people feel tired, hungry, or ready for another snack. Now imagine something different. 2 eggs, perhaps with sautéed spinach and tomatoes, maybe 1 slice of whole grain toast on the side. Notice something important. The carbohydrates haven't disappeared completely. Instead, the meal now contains high-quality protein and healthy fats that slow digestion. That slower digestion gives glucose a gentler entrance into the bloodstream. Your pancreas doesn't have to panic. Your insulin response becomes steadier. Protein also helps trigger hormones that increase feelings of fullness. That means you're often less tempted to reach for sugary snacks later in the morning. This creates what researchers sometimes call The second meal effect. The first meal influences how your body handles the next one. A balanced breakfast can improve blood sugar control well into lunchtime. That's a remarkable concept. One smart meal helping prepare your body for another. Eggs also provide nutrients like choline, which supports liver function and healthy metabolism. As we age, preserving muscle becomes increasingly important as well. Muscle acts like a storage warehouse for glucose. The healthier your muscles remain, the more efficiently glucose can leave your bloodstream after meals. That's one reason resistance exercise combined with adequate protein can be so powerful for blood sugar management. It's not just about burning calories. It's about creating more healthy tissue capable of using glucose. Now, let's move to another food that surprises many people: beans. Some individuals avoid beans because they contain carbohydrates. On paper, that might seem logical, but nutrition doesn't happen on paper. It happens inside the human body. Beans come packaged with something carbohydrates often lack on their own: fiber. Lots of it. Imagine pouring water through a wide-open funnel. Everything rushes through instantly. Now imagine placing a thick sponge inside that funnel. Suddenly, the flow slows dramatically. Fiber acts much like that sponge. Instead of carbohydrates being absorbed all at once, digestion becomes slower and steadier. Blood sugar rises more gradually. Insulin has time to do its job. This slower release reduces the dramatic spikes that place stress on insulin-producing cells. Beans also contain resistant starch. This special type of carbohydrate behaves differently. Instead of being rapidly digested, much of it travels farther into the digestive tract where beneficial gut bacteria ferment it. Those bacteria then produce short-chain fatty acids. These compounds appear to support healthier insulin sensitivity while also reducing inflammation inside the body. Your gut and your blood sugar are more connected than many people realize. In fact, scientists increasingly view the digestive system as one of the body's most important metabolic control centers. When beneficial bacteria thrive, they don't just improve digestion. They help communicate with hormones involved in appetite, inflammation, and glucose regulation. That's remarkable. A bowl of beans isn't simply feeding you. It's feeding trillions of microscopic partners working quietly inside your digestive system. And those partners may help improve how your body responds to insulin over time. Another benefit? Beans are incredibly satisfying. They combine protein with fiber in a way that naturally helps many people eat appropriate portions without feeling deprived. One of my patients used to tell me she couldn't imagine eating chili without crackers. Eventually, she began making chili filled with kidney beans, black beans, vegetables, onions, peppers, and lean turkey. Interestingly, she discovered she needed fewer crackers because the meal itself was so filling. Nothing extreme happened overnight. No miracle, just small, sustainable improvements that gradually help stabilize her blood sugar. Sometimes health changes don't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes they arrive quietly, one balanced meal at a time. Our third food may already be sitting in your refrigerator: Greek yogurt. Not the heavily sweetened dessert versions. Plain Greek yogurt. Here's why it's so interesting. Many dairy products naturally contain carbohydrates in the form of lactose. Yet fermented dairy behaves differently from what many people expect. During fermentation, beneficial bacteria transform the milk, creating a food rich in protein and probiotics. Protein again helps slow digestion. But probiotics introduce another fascinating possibility. Healthy gut bacteria appear to influence inflammation throughout the body. Lower chronic inflammation may help improve insulin signaling inside cells. Think about that for a moment. When chronic inflammation is constantly present, it's a bit like static interfering with an important phone call. The insulin message still exists, but the signal becomes harder for cells to receive clearly. Reducing inflammation may help clear some of that interference. Greek yogurt also contains calcium and other nutrients involved in normal cellular function. Many people enjoy it with berries and chopped walnuts. Notice the pattern that's beginning to emerge. Instead of removing carbohydrates entirely, We're building meals that help the body process those carbohydrates more efficiently. That shift in thinking changes everything. Healthy eating stops becoming a list of forbidden foods. Instead, it becomes an opportunity to combine foods that work together. Protein, fiber, healthy fats, beneficial bacteria, natural plant compounds, each supporting the body's remarkable ability to regulate blood sugar. And perhaps that's one of the most hopeful messages in modern nutrition science. Your body isn't your enemy. It's constantly trying to restore balance. Sometimes it simply needs the right support. Let's continue with a food that has quietly become one of the most studied ingredients in blood sugar research. Nuts, especially almonds and walnuts. For years, many people avoided nuts because they contain fat and are relatively high in calories. But calories tell only part of the story. Think about what usually happens when someone gets hungry around 3 in the afternoon. They grab a handful of crackers, a cookie, a granola bar, maybe a sugary drink. Those foods disappear quickly from the stomach. Blood sugar climbs, insulin rises. Then, just as quickly, hunger returns. Now picture replacing that snack with a small handful of almonds. The experience inside your body is completely different. Almonds provide healthy unsaturated fats, plant protein, magnesium, and fiber. This combination slows digestion and helps keep blood sugar from rising as sharply after meals. Magnesium deserves special attention. As we grow older, many adults don't get enough of this essential mineral. Yet, magnesium is involved in hundreds of chemical reactions throughout the body, including those that help insulin do its job. You can think of magnesium as part of the machinery that allows cells to respond properly when insulin knocks at the door. Without enough of it, that machinery may not work as smoothly. Researchers have observed that people with low magnesium levels are more likely to develop insulin resistance over time. That doesn't mean magnesium alone is a cure. Health is never that simple. But it reminds us that tiny nutrients can have enormous influence over how our bodies function every single day. Walnuts offer another advantage. They're naturally rich in omega-3 fats, particularly alpha-linolenic acid. These healthy fats may help calm chronic inflammation, which, as we've discussed, can interfere with insulin signaling. Imagine trying to have a conversation in a room filled with constant noise. The message becomes difficult to hear. Inflammation creates a similar kind of biological noise. Reducing that background interference may allow insulin's message to reach cells more effectively. One patient once laughed as she told me, "Doctor, I stopped fearing nuts and started fearing the vending machine." That small change made a bigger difference than she expected. She wasn't starving between meals anymore. She wasn't reaching for candy every afternoon. And over several months, her blood sugar gradually improved, not because almonds performed magic, but because they replaced something far less helpful. Sometimes improving health isn't about adding perfection. It's about replacing one habit with a better one. Now let's visit the produce section, specifically leafy green vegetables, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, romaine lettuce. These vegetables don't often make headlines. They're not exciting. No one throws a party over spinach. Yet they may be among the most powerful foods you can regularly place on your plate. Leafy greens are naturally low in digestible carbohydrates while providing vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and plant compounds that support healthy blood vessels and metabolism. One nutrient found in many leafy greens is nitrate, not the processed kind found in cured meats, but naturally occurring plant nitrates. Inside the body, these compounds can be converted into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide helps blood vessels relax. Why does that matter? Because healthy blood flow allows insulin and glucose to reach muscle tissue more efficiently. Think of your bloodstream as a highway. If traffic moves smoothly, deliveries arrive on time. If the roads become damaged or congested, everything slows down. Healthy circulation helps nutrients reach the places they're needed. Blood sugar management isn't only about the pancreas. It's about muscles, blood vessels, the liver, the gut, fat tissue, even your brain. Every system is connected. Leafy greens also contain antioxidants that help protect cells from oxidative stress. Over time, elevated blood sugar can produce unstable molecules called free radicals. These molecules damage tissues, much like rust slowly damages metal. Antioxidants help neutralize some of that damage before it spreads. Another overlooked benefit? Volume. A large salad fills your plate without overwhelming your blood sugar. Many people discover they're naturally satisfied with smaller portions of higher carbohydrate foods when vegetables occupy half the plate. Notice again, the carbohydrates haven't vanished. They're simply sharing space with foods that support healthier metabolism. That's a strategy far easier to maintain for years than an extremely restrictive diet. Our fifth food has been used in traditional cooking for centuries: cinnamon. Now, before we go any further, let's be very clear. Cinnamon is not a treatment for diabetes. It's not a replacement for medication. And sprinkling cinnamon on a donut doesn't suddenly make the donut healthy. But cinnamon has attracted scientific interest because some studies suggest certain compounds within it may improve insulin sensitivity and slow the digestion of carbohydrates. Imagine your digestive system releasing glucose into the bloodstream at a slightly slower pace. Instead of one large wave, the release becomes gentler. That gives insulin more opportunity to keep blood sugar within a healthier range. Researchers are still studying exactly how cinnamon influences these processes. Some evidence suggests it may interact with insulin receptors, the tiny structures on the surface of cells that respond to insulin's signal. Remember our key and lock example? Some scientists believe cinnamon's natural compounds may help those locks respond more efficiently. That's an exciting possibility, but it's important to keep expectations realistic. No spice can overcome a lifestyle filled with inactivity, poor sleep, excessive added sugars, and chronic stress. Think of cinnamon as one helpful player on a much larger team. You might stir it into plain oatmeal, add it to Greek yogurt, sprinkle it over baked apples, blend it into a smoothie. Simple additions, consistent habits. That's where meaningful change usually begins. Now I'd like to introduce a food that many people underestimate because it's so ordinary: apples. You may have heard someone say, fruit contains sugar, so people with diabetes should avoid it. That advice sounds logical at first glance, but whole fruit is very different from fruit juice or sugary desserts. Let's imagine eating an apple. You chew. The fiber remains intact. Digestion takes time. The natural sugars enter your bloodstream gradually. Now compare that with a glass of apple juice. The fiber has largely disappeared. The sugars are absorbed much more rapidly. Your body experiences two completely different situations. Apples also contain a type of soluble fiber called pectin. Pectin forms a gel-like substance during digestion that slows glucose absorption. Once again, slower digestion means a gentler rise in blood sugar. Apples also provide plant compounds known as polyphenols. Researchers continue investigating how these compounds may reduce inflammation and support insulin sensitivity. Interestingly, the skin contains many of these beneficial compounds. Unless your healthcare professional has advised otherwise, eating the whole apple, including the skin after washing it thoroughly, offers the greatest nutritional benefit. One gentleman I cared for used to keep candy in the glove compartment of his car. Every afternoon during traffic, he'd eat several pieces without even thinking about it. Eventually, he replaced the candy with apples and a small bag of almonds. Was it exciting? No. Was it sustainable? Absolutely. 6 months later, he smiled and said something I'll never forget. I stopped eating because I was bored. That simple realization changed everything. Sometimes the food isn't the real problem. Sometimes it's the habit surrounding it. Our seventh food is one that's becoming increasingly popular, and for good reason: avocados. Avocados are naturally low in sugar and rich in monounsaturated fats, fiber, potassium, and a variety of plant nutrients. Healthy fats slow the emptying of the stomach. That means carbohydrates from the rest of the meal enter the bloodstream more gradually. Instead of causing a sharp spike, glucose arrives at a pace the body can manage more comfortably. Avocados are also remarkably satisfying. One of the biggest challenges in managing insulin resistance isn't just choosing healthy foods. It's staying full enough that you're not constantly tempted to snack. A meal that leaves you hungry an hour later often isn't working in your favor. Adding slices of avocado to a salad, sandwich, or vegetable omelet can transform a meal from merely healthy into genuinely satisfying. There's another benefit many people don't think about. Insulin resistance and heart disease often travel together. People with elevated blood sugar frequently struggle with high blood pressure, abnormal cholesterol, or increased abdominal fat. Because avocados support heart-healthy eating patterns, they may offer benefits that extend well beyond glucose control. Health is rarely about fixing one number on a lab report. It's about improving the entire system. That's what makes these foods so valuable. They're not targeting one isolated problem. They're supporting the body's interconnected biology. And when enough small improvements happen together, they can create meaningful change over time. We'll continue with the final 3 foods, including one beverage that may surprise you, and bring everything together in the next part. Let's continue with our 8th food, fatty fish. When most people think about blood sugar, they immediately think about sugar itself. Few stop to consider inflammation. Yet inflammation plays a major role in insulin resistance. Think back to our key and lock example. Insulin is the key. The insulin receptor is the lock. Chronic inflammation doesn't remove the lock. It simply makes it much harder for the key to work properly. That's one reason researchers have spent so much time studying foods that naturally support a healthy inflammatory response. Fatty fish, such as salmon, sardines, trout, and mackerel, are excellent sources of omega-3 fatty acids. These healthy fats help support heart health, healthy blood vessels, and normal inflammatory balance throughout the body. That's especially important because people with insulin resistance are also at greater risk for cardiovascular disease. Blood sugar doesn't exist in isolation. Healthy metabolism and healthy circulation work together. Another advantage of fatty fish is its high-quality protein. Protein slows digestion, helps maintain muscle mass, and supports satiety. Remember, muscle tissue is one of the largest places where glucose is stored after meals. The more healthy muscle you preserve as you age, the better your body can often handle everyday carbohydrates. This is one reason strength training and good nutrition make such a powerful combination. It's not about looking younger. It's about keeping the body's natural glucose storage system working well. If you don't enjoy fish, don't be discouraged. There are other ways to include omega-3 fats in your diet, but it's worth discussing the best approach with your healthcare professional, especially before starting supplements. Now let's move to something many people already drink every morning: coffee. Yes, plain coffee. This surprises many people. Coffee has often been blamed for everything from nervousness to dehydration. But when consumed in moderation and without large amounts of sugar or flavored syrups, coffee contains naturally occurring plant compounds called polyphenols. Researchers continue exploring how these compounds may support insulin sensitivity and help reduce oxidative stress. Some long-term observational studies have found that people who regularly drink moderate amounts of coffee tend to have a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. That doesn't prove coffee prevents diabetes. Many lifestyle factors are involved, but it's an encouraging area of research. The key word, however, is plain. A black coffee or one with a splash of milk is very different from a coffee drink loaded with whipped cream, flavored syrups, and hundreds of extra calories. Sometimes the healthiest part of a beverage disappears beneath everything that's added to it. If you enjoy coffee and your healthcare professional has no concerns about caffeine, there's usually no reason to fear it. Just let the coffee be coffee. Finally, our 10th food. And in many ways, it may be the most colorful. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. These fruits are naturally sweet, but they're also rich in fiber and powerful antioxidants called anthocyanins. Those deep red, purple, and blue pigments don't simply make berries beautiful. They appear to have beneficial effects on blood vessels and metabolic health. Scientists continue studying how anthocyanins may improve insulin signaling and reduce inflammation. Again, we're seeing the same pattern: better communication between insulin and the body's cells, better blood vessel function, better protection against oxidative stress, better overall metabolic health. Because berries are relatively high in fiber compared with many sweeter fruits, they generally produce a gentler blood sugar response when eaten in reasonable portions. Pair them with plain Greek yogurt or a handful of nuts, and you create a balanced snack that supports steady energy rather than dramatic highs and lows. Now, if you've been paying attention, you may have noticed something remarkable. Not one of these foods works because it cancels carbohydrates. Instead, they help your body handle carbohydrates more effectively. That is a completely different philosophy. Rather than declaring war on carbs, we're supporting the body's natural ability to process them. Let's put all 10 foods together: eggs, beans, plain Greek yogurt, almonds and walnuts, leafy green vegetables, cinnamon apples, avocados, fatty fish, berries. Each contributes something slightly different: protein, fiber, healthy fats, magnesium, polyphenols, omega-3 fatty acids, probiotics, antioxidants. Together, they create an eating pattern that supports healthier insulin function instead of relying on restriction alone. But there's something equally important that we haven't talked about yet. No single food can overcome certain daily habits that quietly worsen insulin resistance. For example, many people spend 10 or 12 hours sitting every day. Yet something as simple as taking a 10 to 15-minute walk after a meal can help muscles use glucose more effectively. Those working muscles act like sponges, pulling sugar out of the bloodstream with less demand for insulin. Sleep matters too. Poor sleep can increase stress hormones that make insulin less effective the following day. Have you ever noticed craving sweets after a restless night? That's not a lack of willpower, it's biology. Your body is trying to find quick energy while your hormones are temporarily out of balance. Stress also deserves attention. When we're under constant stress, the body releases hormones that encourage the liver to release more glucose into the bloodstream. That response is helpful during emergencies. It's less helpful when the emergency is an overflowing email inbox or constant worry. Even simple relaxation practices, spending time outdoors, talking with loved ones, reading, gardening, or enjoying a quiet walk can become part of better metabolic health. And don't overlook hydration. Even mild dehydration can make blood sugar readings appear higher because there's less fluid circulating in the bloodstream. Sometimes the simplest habits quietly support everything else you're trying to accomplish. Now, I'd like to leave you with one final story. Several years ago, I met a gentleman in his early 70s who walked into my office carrying a notebook. Inside were pages filled with blood sugar readings. Every number was carefully written, every meal documented. He looked frustrated. He said, "Doctor, I thought I had to stop eating everything I enjoy." As we talked, I realized he wasn't eating too many carbohydrates. He was eating meals that lacked balance. Breakfast was mostly refined starch. Lunch came from a drive-through. Vegetables were rare. Protein was inconsistent. He wasn't failing because he lacked discipline. He simply didn't understand how different foods work together. Over the following months, he didn't eliminate every carbohydrate. Instead, he began adding more vegetables, more beans, more fish, Greek yogurt, nuts, berries. He started walking after dinner with his wife. Just 15 minutes. Nothing dramatic. No extreme diet, no expensive supplements. At his next visit, his blood sugar had improved. His energy had improved. He had lost a modest amount of weight without feeling deprived. But the biggest change wasn't on the laboratory report. It was in his confidence. He smiled and said, "For the first time, I feel like I'm working with my body instead of fighting it." I have never forgotten those words, because that's exactly how healthy aging should feel, working with your body, not against it. If you've been told that your blood sugar is rising, don't lose hope. Insulin resistance often develops gradually, and meaningful improvements also happen gradually. Small, consistent choices repeated day after day can produce remarkable changes over time. Of course, if you have diabetes, prediabetes, or take medications that lower blood sugar, never stop or change those medications on your own. Some of these dietary changes can improve blood sugar enough that medication adjustments may eventually become necessary, but those decisions should always be made together with your healthcare professional. Food is powerful, but it's one part of a much larger picture that includes movement, sleep, stress management, regular medical care, and staying connected with the people who support you. If today's discussion helped you see blood sugar in a new way, I hope you'll remember this one simple idea. You don't always improve health by taking more away. Sometimes you improve health by adding the right things. Before we finish, I'd love to hear from you. How old are you, and which of these 10 foods do you already enjoy the most? Or is there one you're planning to add to your meals this week? Share your experience in the comments. Your story may encourage someone else who is just beginning this journey. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take good care of yourself. Take good care of the people you love. And remember, healthy aging isn't about being perfect. It's about making choices that give your body the best chance to thrive. One meal, one walk, and one day at a time. Stay sharp.